In the spirit of keeping it real, I'm gonna be completely honest about how this project started. Last summer, I was researching crypt models that excited me. I came across Harvey Weinstein, Monster, Anti-Blackness, and the Myth of the Monstrous Rapist, published in the 2021 edition of Communication and Critical Cultural Studies. Authors McCann and Mack detail how media engaged in rhetorically darkening Harvey Weinstein. The idea is whiteness could never be responsible for such heinous acts, so Weinstein is rendered less white and thus monstrous. So, what about coverage of people who commit different heinous acts of violence? After too many summer mass shootings to count, I settled on researching school shooters. Those that most piqued my interest were the first ones. Post-shooting media is predictable. Thoughts and prayers, calls for gun control, guns don't kill people, don't mention the killers, heal, forget, rinse and repeat. The formula is so cemented, it's hard to remember a time it wasn't. But the Littleton Independent on April 18th, 2024 reminds, 26 years ago, two teens at Columbine High School shook this country to its core, and the resulting attempt to document the chaos established media norms we now consider rote. And then it was as if the question asked itself, were the Columbine shooters rhetorically darkened? I sought to find out by further exploring McCann and Mack's modern framework, applying it to Columbine coverage from 1999, and drawing implications of a phenomenon we might not have had the words to describe yet. McCann and Mack explore a rhetorical history of the monstrous black male rapist preying on white women, resulting in tropes still permeating sexual assault conversations. As Weinstein's allegations became charges and then verdicts, coverage detached him from whiteness, resulting in a monster. Rhetorical darkening occurs in three steps: pathologizing the mind, corporeal monstrosity, and hunting grounds. First, pathologizing the mind. Constructing a monster begins by attributing deviant psychological characteristics, suggesting actions stem from innate, uncontrollable impulses rather than culture. Ronan Farrow's infamous Pulitzer Prize-winning article framed Weinstein as a manipulative megalomaniac. Other media invoked sociopath, fiend, and devil. Salma Hayek called him Mr. Hyde. Weinstein's deviant mind excluded him from proper whiteness. A man didn't do this. A monster did. Next, a monster requires corporeal or physical deviance. Portrayals focused on Weinstein's appearance as grotesque or abnormal, reinforcing his distinction from normative bodies. These portrayals invoked the historical caricature of the black brute rapist, a physically overpowering beast. In essence, framing Weinstein as fat and ugly darkened his now monstrous body, absolving the context from which violent acts arose. Finally, hunting grounds, or monstratizing the space, strategically absorbs blame. Journalist Linda Bloodworth Thomason told The Hollywood Reporter, "Forget the Hollywood sign. It would be more fitting if there was a giant penis casting a shadow over this unpoliced playground for men." Funny. Accurate. But this framing blunts the horrifying nature of Weinstein's crimes because look at where he is. As a Variety headline simplifies, Harvey Weinstein is a monster of Hollywood's own making. After repeating McCann and Mack's article, I became fascinated by how well they illuminated the 26-year-old Columbine tragedy. First, pathologizing the shooter's dysfunctional minds. The New York Times on June 29, 1999 offered a special report on their creative writing, riddled with violent language, guns, and war. Article after article after article referenced evil thoughts and personal madness, what McCann and Mack would recognize as excluding deviant minds from proper whiteness. White suburban boys didn't do this. Psychologically disturbed monsters did. Next, corporeal monstrosity. Aside from commentary on one shooter's 6'4" height, I didn't find much on bodies. However, numerous articles, including the Washington Post of April 22nd, 1999, makes note of dark glasses, gothic clothing, and their trench coat mafia. Monstratizing their aesthetics was fair game, and the conclusion couldn't have been clearer. Time magazine on May 3rd, 1999 put the boys' faces on the cover with the caption, "The Monsters Next Door." Finally, hunting grounds. Media coverage indicted Columbine itself. The Seattle Times on June 13th, 1999 probes into the school's jock glorification culture that, quote, intensified the shooters' powerlessness and galvanized their revenge for bullying they received. This framing of inattentive teachers and ostracized killers alleviates the need to investigate the role of whiteness, despite the fact that all bullying claims have since been disproven. By that point, it didn't matter. The shooters were monsters of Columbine's own making. So to answer our question, the Columbine shooters were rhetorically darkened. The white male middle class privilege that would become the hallmark of school shootings went overlooked, directing blame to mental deviance, visual signifiers of a gothic subculture, and a toxic school environment. Distractions that would infect media coverage for 2 decades, inspiring 2 implications. First, rhetorical darkening bolstered the lone wolf myth. McCann and Mack remind, Weinstein's darkening reflects the cunning ways in which whiteness evades reckoning with its own monstrosity. Similarly, Columbine media coverage severed monstrous acts from normative white masculinities. Audiences found comfort in this deviation, reassurance in an anomaly, catharsis in a myth. The Conversation reports on February 23rd, 2023, this insistence that shooters are lone wolves with no connection to broader extremist motivations emerges after every mass shooting as a convenient means of depoliticizing extremism. Instead of focusing on movements like white nationalism that have hidden sympathizers in various levels of government, they focus on individuals. Our retroactive analysis exposes the tactic before it became a strategy, before it even had a name. Finally, modern scholarship applied to past phenomena yields fascinating insight into both. It's too early to know if Weinstein will ever receive a redemptive arc, but 2 decades of post-Columbine coverage offers clues. Specifically, one shooter's mother's attempt to rhetorically demonstratize her son. Salon on February 16, 2016 describes media reception to her tell-all memoir. The New York Times highlighted her story of the shooter's speedy rehabilitation after an arrest. The same New York Times that called Michael Brown no angel. CNN review praises a loving mother. The same CNN that called Freddie Gray's mother an illiterate heroin addict. McCann and Mack acknowledge the historical racism embedded in rhetorical darkening. Our analysis exposes its continued attempts to rehumanize. A privilege afforded only to monsters who happen to be white. Rapists and mass shooters are not monsters. They're people. Friends, priests, the kid next door. After exploring McCann and Mack's theory of rhetorical darkening, retroactively applying it to Columbine and drawing implications, we see how this comforting lie has proliferated for decades, and why we remain so willing to believe it.